Hey, what's up? This is Dr. Taylor Krick at the Washington Wellness Center, and I just want to do a short video here explaining another really good graphic. This is a graphic of the natural course of mold-related illness, and you'll see at the bottom there, it's from the journal Frontiers in Immunology from the April 2017 episode or issue of Frontiers in Immunology. So what we're looking at here, the graphical presentation of the natural course of mold-related illnesses. And this is really just important to understand how mold can impact people. What they're finding, and with mold, and this is from the World Health Organization, etc., but that any amount of mold can be problematic in susceptible people. So over the years, you get exposed to mold once, you get exposed to mold twice, your immune system gets primed, and then you become more sensitive to it, and it becomes a bigger and bigger problem. And that's exactly what this picture is illustrating here. So you see at the beginning here is a healthy person. And so over here, you know, they're first exposed to mold. So they're exposed to mold and other environmental factors. And what that's doing is just kind of bumping their symptoms. They're having exposure. But then over here, there's an acute stage and elimination of the exposure. So let's say that you're exposed to mold and then, you know, the mold gets cleaned up or you move out of that house, but your immune system is primed. And that's the really, really important part, is during this phase, your symptoms might go up, your symptoms might exacerbate, but then they might go back down in what's called a convalescent stage, where you're not expressing current symptoms, you're actually improving, you're getting out of the environment. But what happens is these things called B cells in your body begin to produce antibodies, and your immune system is now primed for a future exposure. So then, you know, days, weeks, months, years go past, and you're subjectively healthy if there's no new exposure. But then if there's a new exposure and your immune system is primed, then your immune system goes through something called boosting, which then your symptoms come back worse than they were the first time. And from this point, they might not ever go back to asymptomatic or go back down here. From here, your body becomes overwhelmed with new symptoms. There's uncontrolled disease progression. There's uncontrolled inflammatory response. Mold exposure is also known as CIRS, or CIRS, which is chronic inflammatory response syndrome. So this mold exposure now kicks off this inflammatory cascade that never gets shut off and leads to a myriad of other downstream problems. So even if the exposure is eliminated, convalescence may be incomplete and may take years. So you're not going down the way that you went down the first time. Now it may take years, or it may not ever happen. And the convalescence depends on a lot of different things. It depends on your genetic factors. It depends on your supportive therapy, on your detox strategies. It depends on your environment, if you've gotten out of the moldy environment. So a lot of different things play a role here. But this graph just illustrates how things can happen over the years. A lot of people say, well, gosh, I didn't used to be sensitive to mold. Well, you didn't used to be sensitive to anything. These things happen over exposures, over many years, and we develop these sensitivities. The immune system becomes primed, and then the same trigger that may have not been a problem 10 years ago all of a sudden sets off this inflammatory cascade, this chronic inflammatory response syndrome, and all of a sudden you have crazy, unexplainable symptoms that you're never associating with the moldy house that you lived in 10 years ago or the little bit of mold that you found in your bathroom last week. So really crazy thing, but I think this graph really helps to explain how mold can just exacerbate these symptoms over many, many days, weeks, months, and years.